Welcome back to the report. Of course, this is to the program. Of course, this is Bottomline Africa right here on KTN News. But before we go to that report on Africa tourism, let me just go through some of the facts and figures about African tourism, and let's take a look at the numbers. Then the industry is expected to create about 12 million jobs, new jobs over the next decade. The sector accounts for 7.1% of all jobs in the continent. 4 out of 10 international tourists who visited Africa in 2013 originated from within the continent. In 2014, Africa recorded $43.6 billion in revenue. I'm sure that figure is very much high right now. And Africa accounts for 5.8% of the world's economic tourist and 3.5% of global revenue in this sector. In the year 2014, a total of 65.3 million international tourists visited the continent. And of course, this is 200,000 more than what was recorded in the previous year, that is in 2013. This is a report that was, of course, conducted in the year 2014. And Africa's strong performance in 2014 makes it one of the world's fastest growing tourist destination, second only to Southeast Asia. And of course, speaking about Kenya, Kenya also relies on tourism for almost 10% of its GDP. Now, according to the World Travel and Tourism Council, of course, the industry employs over 1 million people. Now, in studio, I have two individuals, as I've already told you. One is Mary Luseka. She's the CEO of Brand Kenya, as well as Wafula Wasu is the sales and marketing manager from the Travelers Beach Hotel. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Yusuf.
So, Mary, let me just start with you.
Thanks for having us.
And what we're seeing in Kenya before we talk about Africa shortly. And what we're seeing is some sort of bare knuckles, fist fight between these politicians, name calling. You've seen the tear gas today, right here in Nairobi as well as in Kisumu. I'm sure as a Brand Kenya CEO, are you having a rough time in office?
Ibrahim, those are not good pictures to be being shared around the world. Of course, it is extremely challenging that that is the unfortunate reality of the situation here. And whilst, as a branding nation, we would want the picture to be different, I think the best thing is really for us to urge Kenyans to be true to themselves and see the implications of some of these actions that are being undertaken. Yeah.
Now, Wafula, being an individual who is, part and parcel of the tourism sector, of course, you are a player, you're a manager in one of the leading hotels. So have you seen any kind of impact, from the elections this year on the tourism sector, that is?
Definitely, yes. I can confirm that we in the industry are suffering because of the current situation. But I think just to go with what my colleague is saying and to emphasize a point, Kenya's tourism industry is a bit resilient. We've not seen much of a shock, but realistically, there are shocks that we are feeling deep down in the industry. And
this is where I want to bring Mary to the discussion once again. And from the statistics, from interviews we're getting from economists, is that most investors are some sort of, deploying some sort of a wait-and-see approach to Kenya. And this happens every time there is an election. Why do you think election is mainly associated with tension in Kenya?
Ibrahim, this has been a historical problem, such that every 5-year cycle, we get into an electioneering season, and, historically, we always had clashes. Clashes were the thing of the 90s. And then after that, we matured and we got out of it. We got a new constitution. But just prior to that, we had, of course, the 2007 election, post-election violence. So our reputation has not been good. But we have invested so much in getting out of that cycle so that now this was going to be the year where we do not have those kind of issues recurring. Because, of course, 2013 was a success. And we did not want to go back ever. Unfortunately, after the Supreme Court ruling, we've had quite a number of statements from leaders all over the place, which are actually a worrying trend, looking at where we are going. Of course, we have not gotten back to where we were. We definitely feel that we have matured as a nation. But the sentiments that we got today from the envoys, the statement we also got from KEPSA, who are also concerned about what is going on. Of course, even us as a branding agency, we feel it is an opportunity for Kenyans to relook at how far we have come and not really allow ourselves to go back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, Wafula, from the report I've just read, according to the World Tourism Organization, Africa is one of the world's fastest growing tourist destination, and it's only second to South Asia. With the current situation we're seeing in the country, whenever there's an election, tourists keep on shining the country. Do you think Kenya is in danger of lagging behind even as these other African countries continue making progress?
Well, I would think yes and no. Yes, in the sense that we have left ourselves very vulnerable to this, being controlled by having the industry being controlled by the external environment. And in this, I'm talking about the politics right now. No, in the sense that I've mentioned before, Kenya's tourism industry is known to be a little bit resilient. But not to the level that most other African countries have had their countries, being resilient. I'm talking, for example, a country like Egypt, that despite all the political upheavals that happened in the Arab Spring, they still record highs of around 11 million tourists annually. Compared to Kenya, that does, maybe last year, 2016, we did 1.3 million. Against what Egypt has, Morocco reporting 10 million with the kind of tourism product it has. And South Africa, just our brothers Sub-Saharan, reporting 9 million tourists. Yes. So, okay, comparing Kenya, we've not cushioned ourselves and the industry. And part of this, I really bring it to KTB, to the brand Kenya, for not doing much to cushion the industry from the shocks.
Mary,
because it goes down, of course.
Mary, do you agree with Wafula that brand Kenya, the likes of Kenya Tourism Board, is not doing enough to support tourism?
Not really, actually, because, I don't know, let me just take you a few years back. You remember in 2014, His Excellency the President, through the Ministry of Tourism, set up a task force on tourism recovery. I was actually the secretary to that task force. And this task force made recommendations as to what can be done to recover this sector. And in collaboration with many partners, for example, security was a key issue at that time. And usually security is the primary reason why people would then shy away from a country. And that is why at this point in time, issues such as riots or demos are areas of concern, because then they take us back into that image. Yes. Otherwise, we had made a lot of progress, and we believe that our systems are actually good and resilient in that manner. And the players... The players...
Wafula, let her finish and then you'll continue.
Let me just finish,
Carry on, Mary.
So the players within the security sector have done really well to move us forward. The other area that was huge was air connectivity, which was a big problem. And again, based on the recommendation of this task force, the charters incentive program was rolled out for Kenya. And right now, if you look at Mombasa, Mombasa has been benefiting from charters such as Neo, Meridiana, Blue Panorama that are coming in from different countries, up to and including the likes of Swiss Air and Lufthansa, which are now scheduled flights that are coming in. Yes. So I cannot truly say that not much has been done. Definitely a lot has gone into it, but the image of a country is not something that is left to bodies, agencies alone. It is all of us that play a role, because you find that Kenyans themselves are the ones who go on the rampage on social media and really pull us back.
Yes, Mary, we're going to talk about the importance of branding very shortly. But Wafula, can you react to what she said very briefly?
I would think that what Mary is saying is, if you listen to her speak, you will definitely look at the way she's leaning. She's leaning very much west. She's leaning very much foreign. When you talk about resilience of a tourism industry, if you look at the US, for example, you look at countries that are developed. Yes. When we have a small problem, I want to call it small, like terrorism, we have a problem right now in the US, in LA. And you won't see their figures tumbling like we will have in Kenya. When you talk about resilience in the tourism industry, you're looking at the local the local tourists, the domestic tourists. These are the people who are going to make this industry continue flourishing. But if we are talking about waiving off the visa, landing fees and stuff, and trying to cushion the country, you know, looking at anti-terrorism tactics, we are not going to go far. And the solution to Kenya's tourism lies in promoting local domestic tourism. And then once we do that, once we see it's resilient enough, it's moving, we go, we look outside the boundaries.
But I'm sure, Wafula, you agree to the fact that as much as we should focus on domestic tourists, we should not close our doors or shut our doors to foreign tourists. Now, Mary, let's talk about branding very shortly. And your record having said that, you know, branding and economy moves hand in hand, and we've seen move by the East African community coming up with a single visa for the whole region, and of course people are moving towards economical blocks in Africa. Do you think there's need of a concerted regional effort towards branding? We have Brand Kenya. Do you think Tanzania, Uganda, and these other countries also did this kind of organization? I
do agree, actually, because you find that Brand Africa, you know, it really starts there. Before somebody can consider investing in Kenya or investing in any other country in Africa or even touring, it begins by, first of all, the perceptions that they have over the continent. So what do they think of Africa? So really, as African countries, we need to get out there and brand ourselves, first of all, as Africa, because then we remove some of those perceptions which existed over the years, such as Africa is known for poor transport network, or Africa is known for disease and, you know, war and those kind of things, which we have already gotten out of over the years. So I think a collaborative effort in branding Africa and then moving into now the regions definitely makes it easier for countries then individually to step out there and then brand themselves. Of course, and it's a fact, like, still that, you know, Africa has challenges with infrastructure. We're going to talk about that shortly. But let's focus on what you said a few minutes ago, and that has everything to do with every Kenyan being an ambassador for this country. And allow me to be political a little bit. You've seen what happened on Thursday at the University of Nairobi, where, you know, some innocent students we've seen in, you know, footage being frog-marched by police officers. You know, these are youths, and I think they form a huge chunk of these ambassadors that are supposed to sell the country's image out there. With that kind of an action, do you think there's a possibility that Kenya is going to get some sort of goodwill from these youths? Yes, I am very optimistic that we will get goodwill, because at the end of the day, changing the people of a country and their behavior takes a very long time. I think over the years we are getting to a point of self-awareness, and we are realizing the implications of our actions. And I say this because, you remember, immediately the election result, I mean, we had voted. Everybody went back into their homes and we were watching news. And then immediately the results came out. There was a lot of fake news for about 2 days, which was a huge problem. A huge problem that the communications authorities stepped in, the police stepped in to address the problem. We as the branding agency also stepped in. And you find that it is the same scenario that we are going through right now with the university students' case. Of course, we condemn what happened there, and I don't think it is something that we want to see happening in Kenya in this era. However, we realized, even actually from IPOA's report, which came out today, that actually some of the pictures online and the videos were actually fake. So it just means that there are few people who still have not come to that realization that anything they post out there that is fake is actually hurting their own country, you know? Well said, Mary. And Wafula, we've talked about the need for both KTB, Brand Kenya, and these other bodies to support tourism. But I'm sure you'll agree with me that another hurdle that is facing the sector, not just in Kenya, but across the continent, is infrastructure. And it's not always seamless, you know, when you want to move across the continent. And there are reports that indicate it's even much more expensive to travel, or, you know, across the continent compared to people who travel, let's say, from Europe to Africa. Do you think there's something that needs to be done as far as infrastructure is concerned?
Well, definitely, when you look at those destinations that have made milestones in developing their tourism industry, infrastructure development is key to that. And you'll find roads that are very elaborate, that are good. You'll find railway system that is elaborate. You'll find all other means of transport that is very reliable and elaborate. In our case, I think, I don't want to sound very pessimistic, but the government has done an incredible job since 2013, or maybe slightly before that, 2002. We have had a very concerted effort in trying to create a very elaborate road network. And then we have, of course, the signature SGR, Madaraka, that has come in handy, especially for Arabs people who are in Mombasa.
Yes.
The only thing that I would hesitate on commending the government's part in this is, I think SGR as a project that is going towards improving, that was meant to improve the tourism in Mombasa and transportation, has not really lived to its billing. You get somebody has come from Nairobi, they reach Syokimau, and not Syokimau, sorry, from Miritini, and getting themselves from Miritini to, say, Travelers Beach, it costs them another maybe 1.5 hours, which negates the whole thing of coming for 4.5 hours from Nairobi to Mombasa.
Yes.
You get people who are very tired. The second thing, you look at the implementation of the project like SGR, and I actually applaud the government for doing this. But the programming of that very one train to Mombasa, from Nairobi to Mombasa, is not realistic. I would just have thought maybe the stakeholders would have met with the hoteliers in Mombasa to decide, to look at the timings, to add on capacity and stuff like that.
Yeah. And we do hope they're
so
listening.
We are headed in the right...
Now, allow me to cross over to Mary once again. And Mary, I'm sure you've seen these arrests that have been made in the country with regards to politicians, hurling insults on each other. Do you think this might go ahead and erode the country's image out there?
Not really. I think we must have our own self-correcting mechanisms to make sure that in the end, issues such as incitement of the public towards political violence are totally shunned. And I think it's a welcome move that if there is anybody who is contravening the laws, then the self-correcting mechanisms have to kick in. It's a good lesson for all. Yes. And I think we just would want to urge all politicians to make sure that they are careful with their remarks, because in the end, they have very serious economic consequences on Kenya. And also for the general public, that the Supreme Court made a clear ruling. And this ruling, what just needs to happen is that we meet at the ballot box and we vote. And IEBC is the body that is supposed to guide us and tell us what it is that we need to do. We all don't work at IEBC, so we should stop taking over their job and feeling like we can go to the streets and things like that. Let's wait for them to guide us on the program. We can assess it and maybe comment after they have shared with us. And eventually we play our democratic role. Yes. I think that is the disciplined way to go about it. Yeah.
Unfortunately, Mary, we've been talking about negative stories and stories that are affecting brand Kenya out there. Perhaps can you tell us some of the positive things the brand Kenya is banking on from Kenya?
Oh, there's quite a lot. There's quite a lot of positivity going around. In fact, Ibrahim, if you can remember, we rolled out a campaign just before the elections called Plus 254, took on a plus kibao.
Yes.
This is a campaign we rolled out to Kenyans to encourage everybody to celebrate the gains we have made as a country and focus on moving forward. Irrespective of anything that happens, we keep the focus and we keep supporting the country. And right now, if you look at indices all over the world, the World Economic Forum released the competitiveness report. Kenya has moved 2 places up, yeah? And then in areas of labor and market efficiency, we are doing very well. Financial inclusion, we are doing very well. Investors have not shied away yet from Kenya. And that is why for this point in time, at this point in time, this kind of behavior that we saw at the University of Nairobi is a reason to be concerned, because we don't want to lose the gains. We are making so much progress. So we have even shown the world that even when an election result has been overturned, that we can still be peaceful, that we are focused, we are reviewing our systems as we move forward. Those are really, really many things to celebrate. And that is why we really rolled out this campaign. Yeah.
Well said, Mary. I'm going to come to you shortly and you're going to give us your final comment. But Wafula, let's talk about the tourism sector once again. In Kenya, it offers more than 1 million jobs across the continent. It offers about 12 million plus jobs. Do you think there's need for, the government to support this sector?
Definitely yes, Ibrahim, definitely yes. The million plus employment opportunities that are created by the industry, I can give it a ripple effect of times 10. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about income for these households. I'm talking about taxes for the government. So definitely, yes, we need. But we are not, the tourism industry, like I said, and I repeat, is not getting what it deserves. Let me give you a scenario. From the report from the economic survey, 2016, indicates that Kenya in 2016 made 99.7 billion from tourism alone. And then how much are we spending on the same to market Kenya? According to the CES Balala, between fiscal year 2016, 2017, 2017-18, they allocated 2 billion, I can be challenged to this, but they allocated 2 billion shillings to market Kenya, which represents virtually 1% of the revenue that the industry produces. So I think there is not so much of a goodwill, or there are misplaced priorities from the government. They are not looking at tourism the way it was initially being looked at, as the only goose that laid the golden eggs. And we need to go back to those times, try to build tourism, let it be an inclusive industry where we are not only given policies to implement, but we are part of the policy arrangement. I just mentioned the issue of SGR, for example.
Yes.
And there are very many others. A place like Mombasa, hotels in Mombasa are overburdened by taxes. We have to pay the national government this tax. The county governments are asking for this. Every small thing, its license, its taxes, is where are we going to get the money to pay the bills? Where are we going to get the money to pay the salaries, for example? The water bills. The operating costs are skyrocketing. And the government is doing nothing about it. They are waiting for us to continue working hard and give them the taxes, which is untenable. So to me, the government, central government, the regional governments, they should work towards improving this tourism, the industry, so that we continue employing people, we continue giving the taxes.
Yes, well said, Ofula. I think that will serve as your final comment. Now, Mary, your final comment. I understand we are in an election year, and I think this is not the best time to sell brand Kenya out there.
Yeah, thank you, Ibrahim, for the opportunity. The best thing we can be able to tell Kenyans is we all love this country. And the best way to demonstrate that you truly love this country is, first of all, at this very critical moment, we must support the institutions that are there to make sure that we have a good election, a credible election. And for you to support these institutions is really not to tear them down. Because if we have a culture where every other time we are bringing down institutions, we will never move forward. A lot of reforms have gone into making sure that we get to where we would like to be. That is how, when we've all voted, we walked away feeling, wow, that was fantastic. It was very smooth. Yeah, only that then problems emerge later on. So there's always an area to improve. So I think my first message is, let's not tear down the institutions. Let us support them so that then we benefit from the progress that they bring to Kenya. The second thing being that we must maintain calm. We must maintain peace. Peace in our language. Everything that we talk about, from politicians to Kenyans on social media, we must maintain calm, because our messaging has economic consequences. You can see already the foreign censors, which we can get from the envoys. They are already sensing a narrative that is not right, and therefore they're giving us a warning. We don't want to listen to warnings from out there. Let's really be the ones who are proactive. We love our country, and we take the necessary measures to safeguard it. And really focus on moving Kenya forward. In our actions, every day, wake up, go to work, do your business, let's build Kenya.
Well said, Mary. Of course, that is Mary Luseka, who is the CEO of Brand Kenya. Many thanks for your input. As well as Wafula Waswa is the sales and marketing manager from the Travelers Beach Hotel, who was coming to us live from the coastal city of Mombasa. Of course, this is Bottomline Africa, right on KTN News. Now, let's cross over to our images of the day. And our images of the day are from the Cop Dissal Music Awards held in Abidjan last night. Ivorian music star DJ Arafat has won Best Artist of the Year for the second time in a row at the Cop Dissal Awards in Abidjan.
First, I say thank you to my fans, because it is my fans who are the strongest. They are the ones who make me win. And at the same time, I also say thank you to God. And I thank all my competitors for always giving me the strength to always take them down. It was obvious.
Well, I must admit I'm not very fluent, or actually I don't know French, but my director here, Raul, says he knows quite a bit of French, and he's telling me the awards are called Cop de Calais. Actually, it's Copé de Calais. Thank you, Raul, for that. Let's now take a look at the proverb of the day. Well, it's now about time we look at our Twitter poll tonight, and we did ask you earlier if you think the NASA demonstrations against the electoral body REBC will be or will bear fruit. Let me just take that again. We did ask you if you think the NASA demonstrations against REBC, that is the electoral body, will bear fruit. 63% of you said yes, and 37% of you said no. Let me just quickly go through some of your feedback here. At K. Sane says, a big no, Kenya is not a collapsed nation where institutional changes are made through hooliganism and warlordship. Anti-Njoki Ndongo, okay, that's a Twitter handle, and he or she is saying, if all sectors of economy can feel the impact of the demonstration, even after being joined by US demo, I'm sure very soon good fruits are coming. And then one final one from... let me get one here. At Jediah Munishi says, no, it won't. It's a cry that bear no fruits, instead making Kenyans suffer a lot. Keep the conversation going. Remember, our Twitter handle is at KTN News. And remember to use the hashtag of your favorite African program, that is Bottomline Africa. And finally, on the bottom line tonight, we just want to pause for a moment and reflect on the senseless loss of lives. Nearly 60 to be exact in the US, all because of intolerance. Why should we care here in Africa that more than 50 lives were taken away by a mere act of hate? Because we here in Africa too share similar experiences. Just within this bulletin, we have seen that schools in northeastern Nigeria have been closed because the hate by Boko Haram insurgents just won't let children be. Here in Kenya, it's only a couple of days since the country laid a senior government official that let Mariam El-Maawi to rest, another victim of hate. As we have seen only too often, hate in the world has bred a clique of violent extremists who know no religion, race, age, culture, or even tribe. The grandfather of modern-day liberation, the late Nelson Mandela, aptly put it in his book, The Long Walk to Freedom, and I quote, "No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love, for love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite." So, ladies and gentlemen, let's teach others, of course, how to love, And that is, of course, the bottom line tonight. Many thanks for watching. My name is Yusuf Ibrahim. Remember, this program is aired every Monday to Thursday from 10 to 11 p.m. Until tomorrow, same place, same time. Bye-bye and enjoy the rest of the night.